Man, I certainly triggered a lot of you last time by having Ash catch SLUGMA. I thought that might be something that could be a little divisive and split my comments section. But if you think that's something that's going to draw a line in the community, just wait for what we have in store in this part. So, let's get into it. Alright, we pick back up with Ash, Grant, and Alexa heading towards the Kalos power plant. Ash is extremely worried about SLUGMA, since Grant pointed out the fact that it was too easy to capture. Upon reviewing SLUGMA, he can see that it is badly injured. There's no way a quick attack should have taken it out that quick. After what seems like an eternity, the group finally ends up at the power plant. But it's odd. Grant and Alexa both comment on it. Usually the power plant is heavily staffed, as it is meant to power the entire region of Kalos. Lumio City itself is the largest populated city in the whole Pokemon world, and it requires a lot of electricity. And for the power plant to power something that size, it would need a lot of staffing. So the fact that there's a lack of personnel around is very concerning. Meanwhile, from inside the power plant, a familiar face, Mabel, is watching as Ash approaches. She's been waiting for her chance to get her revenge on Ash. She's developed somewhat of an obsession with him. She can't stand the fact that he keeps besting her every time they come in contact, and she aims to end it once and for all here. Ash, Grant, and Alexa try communicating through the comms on the outside of the power plant, with no luck. Nobody is answering them. They walk around outside trying to find somebody, anybody, that can help them and offer any type of medical attention to SLUGMA. Then they come to one of the main doors for the power plant, and without any response from anyone, the door is just open, allowing the group to see inside. But there too is no personnel, no one around. Grant thinks this is strange. His intuition is telling him that they shouldn't go inside, but Ash urges him, as he is really worried about SLUGMA. He wants to do whatever he can to find any type of help for it. Against Grant's better judgment, the group heads inside, and the doors close behind them. Once inside, everything is well lit, and as they search around, they're noticing a distinct lack of any type of personnel inside this place. Alexa claims that she had heard that the plant had become fully automated at one point, but there was still personnel that was required here to maintain the automation, so there should be somebody here. Then, over the intercom system, they hear, "Welcome to the Kalos power plant. If our guests will please proceed forward down the hallway to the main corridor. All of your questions will have answers momentarily." This catches Ash's attention. A chance to get SLUGMA medical help is too great to pass up, so he immediately takes off running down the corridor, with Alexa in tow. Grant, on the other hand, he's holding back. Something about this to him doesn't feel right. He looks back at the way that they came, and he realizes this is a one-way entrance. There's no getting out of here. They are on their own. Grant says, "I have no choice." He pulls out a device from his pocket, and he pushes a button on it, and then places it back inside, and then proceeds to take off after Ash and Alexa down the direction that they had come. Eventually, the three of them come to a room that seems to be a greeting center of some sort for the power plant. And there, off in the distance, stands an individual. Ash sees them and runs towards them urgently, holding SLUGMA in his hands, claiming that he has an injured Pokemon and that he needs help. Can they point them in a direction of somebody that can give it the medical attention it needs? But as Ash gets closer and the person comes into view, he hears, "That won't be necessary, because not only will your SLUGMA be coming with me, but the rest of your Pokemon will be as well." The person turns to reveal herself as Mabel. Ash stops dead in his tracks, with Alexa and Grant right behind him. Ash looks at Mabel and declares, "You won't be getting my Pokemon today. I don't understand why you keep trying, but it doesn't matter. You failed so many times before, and this one will be no different." Mabel just laughs. She says, "Last time was different. We attacked you on your ground, but this time, you've come to us." Alexa asks, "What do you mean by us?" Mabel says, "Well, just look around." And Ash, Grant, and Alexa all look around, and they are surrounded by Team Flare Guns. Then on the balcony above Mabel stands someone else in a white lab coat, and she claims, "Mabel, are these the ones that have been giving you so much trouble? How pitiful." This agitates Mabel, and she rebuttals, "I didn't ask for your opinion. I just asked for your help. So why don't you get down here so we can capture everything that we need, and we can be on our way." The individual on the balcony says, "All right, no need to be snippy about it," as she jumps down to join Mabel by her side. She introduces herself as Bryony, one of the 5 Team Flare scientists, and she looks at Ash, Grant, and Alexa, and she asks them in a very pleasant tone, "Could you please be so kind as to hand over your odd color Pokemon, as they are much needed for our research?" Ash looks at her and tells her the same thing he told Mabel. "No, you won't be leaving with my Pokemon." Grant seconds this, and Alexa backs it up as well. Bryony sighs. She says, "Well, we're gonna have to do this the hard way then. It's a shame. I hate using force, but what can I expect from a gym leader that uses rock types? You use the tool of a caveman, you act like a caveman. And I guess you two, by extension, are the same as him." This doesn't really prompt any type of reaction out of Grant, but it does get under Ash's skin. He's not one to really take insults, and he tells her, "Hey, listen, we're just looking for medical attention for my SLUGMA. So, if you don't mind, we're going to turn around and we're going to head back the way we came." Just then, a giant door shuts behind the three. Mabel says, "Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the three of you are going anywhere." Ash, Grant, and Alexa grit their teeth. All three of them have their backs together. Grant says, "It looks like we don't have a choice. We're going to have to battle our way out of this one." Alexa agrees. Ash says, says, yeah, that looks like to be the case. So they each grab a Pokeball and they ready. Ash sends in Absol. Grant sends in Onyx. And Alexa sends in Noivern. Bryony sighs as she says, this is a futile attempt, but I suppose we don't have any choice. And she sends in her Pokemon, a Liepard. Mabel, on the other hand, she's excited for this. She's been itching at a chance to put Ash in his place, so she sends in her Pokemon. Ash, fully expecting an Electrike, is surprised by what comes out of the ball. Mabel has been busy because her Electrike has evolved into a Magnetric, and it seems to be super aggressive. Meanwhile, all of the grunts that surround the three have all sent in their Pokemon as well. Grant and Alexa tell Ash to leave the grunts to them, as Noivern and Onyx have the ability to clear multiple opponents at once. Ash just needs to focus on the two Team Flare scientists at hand. He says, alright then, they want a battle, they got it. He orders Absol to use Quick Attack, and it comes charging in. Unfortunately, Magnetric and Liepard seem to be its superior when it comes to speed. Even with the added boost of Quick Attack, it isn't enough to outspeed them, and they easily dodge it and counter with a Slash Attack and a Shockwave that hits Absol, knocking it down. Ash calls to it asking if it's alright. It stands back up and it shakes off the attacks, ready for round 2. Ash just smiles. I knew you could take more damage than that, and he orders Absol to charge a Razor Wind. Unfortunately, it seems that even though the duo don't really see eye to eye, they are good when it comes to team battles. And again, a couple of combinations managed to put Absol down. Ash is starting to get flustered. Unfortunately, he hasn't been put in a position where he has to have a team battle. He doesn't want to send out Cranidos or Yanma because those are the two that these guys are after. And if they get any type of chance, they could steal him. That really only leaves one other choice since Slugma's damaged. So Ash sends in Clauncher to provide some sort of support to Absol. Luckily, Clauncher's fast. It's able to even out the battle, allowing Ash to level the playing field a little bit. But unfortunately, Clauncher just doesn't quite have the power to match the two. And to top it off, Magnetric is also an electric type, so if it actually takes one direct shot from it, it could end the battle for them, putting Ash back to square one. The battle gets pretty intense. Ash is doing his best to keep the two at bay, but unfortunately both of the Team Flare scientists and their Pokemon are gaining ground. Meanwhile, with Grant and Alexa, they're not faring much better. The sheer number of the grunts has them outmatched. Grant is starting to grow more concerned, and he thinks to himself, any minute now, back over with Ash, Absol is doing his best to defend Clauncher from the attacks. Clauncher is able to keep up with it and the other Pokemon, but it's having trouble putting power behind its attacks to actually cause some real damage to Liepard and Magnetric. And this, unfortunately, is causing Absol to take the brunt of the attacks, as it keeps intercepting any type of electric attacks that are being sent Clauncher's way. Clauncher can see this, and it's getting frustrated because Absol can see that it's not allowing it to battle at its full potential. And out of sheer frustration, it starts to glow. Ash looks at it and he asks, what's happening? Grant yells to Ash, Ash, it's evolving. So Ash pulls out his Pokédex, and it reads, Clawitzer, the Howitzer Pokemon. After using the feelers on its oversized claw to detect the locations of prey, Clawitzer launches a cannonball of water at its target. And this couldn't have come at a better time too, because Liepard is rushing in with a Shadow Claw. And as it gets closer to Clawitzer, Ash calls for a Crab Hammer. The Crab Hammer is able to easily knock Liepard back into a wall, knocking it out, one-shotting it in the process. Clawitzer just stands there and looks at Absol and the Magnetric, kind of giving a little flex with its oversized claw. It's here to battle, and it's here to prove its power, and it's not going to let either one of them intimidate it or holding it back from battling. Ash can see this, and he can also see that Absol is tired. So he orders Clawitzer to use an Aqua Jet, and it rushes in, catching the Magnetric off guard, and Ash then orders a point-blank Water Pulse that hits Magnetric with severe damage. Not enough to knock it out, but enough to where it's going to feel it in the morning. As this is happening, the alarms to the power plant go off, and sirens start letting loose throughout the building. Mabel yells, what is that? Bryony says, that's the alarm. Somebody's entered the power plant that we didn't want to. She says, we need to get out of here now. If we don't, then we won't have another chance. Mabel, out of frustration, lets out a loud yell, telling Ash that this won't be the last he sees of her. She will return, and she will get his Cranidos and his Janma, not to mention the Skiddo and the Tyrant that Grant and Alexa have. With that, the grunts and the two Team Flare scientists disappear deep into the power plant. Ash, stunned, asks what is going on. Alexa says she doesn't know, and Grant, claiming ignorance, says he doesn't understand what's going on either. But before they know it, they're surrounded by individuals that are in official-looking uniforms. Alexa says, I know who these guys are. They're the international police. But how do they know that we were here and that we needed help? Then someone from behind the crowd of international police comes forward, and he introduces himself as Looker. Looker says that he is the leader of the international police, and they had received multiple reports recently that the power plant had had suspicious activity happening at it, so they came to check it out. Just then, one of the members of Looker's squad yells, hey boss, I found the workers. Then a group of imprisoned workers come out, and they are introduced as Jolt, Jules, and AC, the only 3 workers that actually work in the power plant. Unfortunately, Team Flare was able to take advantage of the fact that the power plant had minimum human activity, so they were able to easily infiltrate and take over the power plant without much suspicion. Jolt then looks at Ash, and he recognizes something, the SLUGMA in Ash's arms. He asks Ash, where did you get that SLUGMA? Ash says, well, I actually caught it outside of the power plant, but it was in real bad shape. Jolt says, that SLUGMA was actually trying to protect us from Team Flare. A while back, a trainer had abandoned it around here, and it just kind of hung out ever since, becoming the unofficial mascot of the power plant. You know, just kind of warding off any wild Pokemon that didn't need to be too close, or any intruders that didn't need to be here. But when Team Flare attacked, it tried to get rid of them, and in retaliation, it was injured pretty badly. It must have wandered around outside trying to find help. Ash asks if they have any type of medical supplies for Pokemon. Joel says, yes, if you actually follow me, we have a full Pokemon Center below the main floor, as we need one because we're so far away from Lumio City. After they get everything patched up and Slugma's feeling a little bit better, as it's become nightfall and they've made the choice to camp out at the power plant with the other workers. There is actually a lot of living quarters that are unoccupied, as there's only 3 workers that actually exist in the power plant at a time. So they have more than enough room for the trio to spend the night. So with that, Ash tries to get to know Slugma, but Slugma is nowhere near what Klotzer was. Klotzer, when Ash got it, was extremely excited to finally have a trainer that appreciated it for what it was. Slugma, though, seems to be the exact opposite. It's kind of like it doesn't trust Ash, and Ash can see this, but he doesn't know how to approach it. Alexa tells Ash that he's going to have to work with Slugma. Slugma may feel that because it was abandoned, that you're just the next person to abandon it, so it may not even want to try to get close to you. So this could definitely be a struggle. Ash says, don't worry, I'm more than up for the challenge. After all, what kind of trainer would I be if I didn't try? Meanwhile, Grant is off talking with Looker. He had told Ash and Alexa that he was going to give him a statement. After all, they had already given their statements. But in reality, Grant is talking with Looker. Looker says, it's a good thing you triggered your homing beacon when you did. Otherwise, your luck may not have been so fortunate. Grant says, yeah, I know. I had a feeling something was up when we got in here. Why do you think Team Flare was here? Looker says, I don't know. I have no idea why they would be interested in the Kalos power plant, but it definitely has to have something to do with the other things they've been doing in the region lately, especially with these off-colored Pokemon that you guys have had. Grant asks Looker, so should I tell Ash, or should we keep him in the dark? Looker tells Grant, you know your mission is to protect the boy, nothing more. The less he knows, the better. And with that, Looker takes his men and they make their leave. Grant returns to the group, and Alexa asks if Grant was able to give a statement. Grant says yeah. Fortunately, that Looker guy seems to be a little dense. I had to give it to him a couple of times. That's why it took me so long. Ash says yeah, I kind of got that vibe too. But it was the oddest thing. I felt like for some reason, I knew him, like I had met him before. Grant says, it must have just been a coincidence. I'd never met him before today. Ash says, yeah, maybe. But Ash is even more excited because his first Pokemon actually evolved, Klotzer. He knew that another trainer had it, but he didn't realize that it was at that high of a level. It was high enough to evolve. And the stress of the situation and it really wanting its chance to battle was just the motivation that it needed. Grant tells Ash, that's true, but you need to make sure that you're watching that, Ash, because you were holding Clauncher back. And the fact that you were holding Clauncher back could be a hindrance to it, and it could drive a wedge between you and it. So you need to be careful now that's a Klotzer, because the higher level a Pokemon gets, and the higher in the evolution chain that it gets, the stronger they become. Sometimes they develop personalities that make them feel like they're too powerful for their trainers. So keep that in mind. Ash thanks Grant for the advice, and the trio settle in for the night. As for the next morning, they're heading to Lumio City, because Ash get his chance to earn his 3rd badge. The next morning, the trio set out from the power plant, and after the course of about a week, they finally make it to Lumio City, and the first stop is Professor Sycamore. After all, Ash was supposed to go see him a few months ago, but then he ended up getting Absol and meeting Lysander, so he felt like he didn't really have to do it. But now that he's in the largest city in the Kalos region, and the home city of Professor Sycamore, he feels like he might stop by, just to at least say hi and introduce himself. After getting lost in the large city, they finally make their way to the Sycamore lab. Ash is actually a little bit weary. He thinks to himself, what if this guy is actually mad at me because I never showed up for my first Pokemon? What if that Pokemon is actually still here waiting for me, and the fact that I never showed up caused it to develop some sort of resentment for trainers? These are all thoughts that are racing through his head as they enter the front door. Once Ash gets inside, he's greeted by a fairly young fellow, somebody that he wouldn't imagine being a Pokemon professor. He actually imagined Professor Sycamore to be much older. Alexa, actually being from the Lumio City and working for the Lumio City Press, knows who Professor Sycamore is and has actually interviewed him several times. And she automatically says, hi Professor, it's been a while. This is what grabs Ash's attention and causes him to realize that this is the man he's here to see. Professor Sycamore turns to the group and says, Alexa, it's been a while. Who are your friends? She introduces Grant and she introduces Ash. Sycamore says, Ash, where have I heard that name before? My young man, what's your last name? Ash says, well, my name is Ash Ketchum. He says, Ash Ketchum. Ah, I remember. You're the boy that never showed up to pick up your Pokemon. Ash says, yeah, I'm actually sorry about that, sir. I was was all set to come and pick up my Pokemon, but some events actually happened to where I didn't actually have to get one. Professor Sycamore says, oh really? Then why are you here now? Ash says, I'm actually here to Lumio City to see you, to let you know what had happened, and to try and challenge for my 3rd badge. Professor Sycamore questions, 3rd badge? Ash says, yeah. I actually ended up getting my first Pokemon from one of the Pokemon that I idolized the most, Lysander. Professor Sycamore says, Lysander? You mean Lysander of Lysander Labs? Ash says, yes. I met him, and he actually caught an Absol that had attacked us in the forest, and he actually gave it to me, making Absol my first Pokemon. That's why I didn't actually come here when I was supposed to. Professor Sycamore just laughs. He says, oh, really? Well, that does explain a lot. How fortunate of you to meet Lysander at a time like that. I actually know Lysander. He stops by my lab from time to time. He owns a cafe here in the city, and I often go there for refreshments. So maybe while you're here in the city, you might have the chance to see him. Ash then asks, is the Pokemon that you were going to give me still here? Professor Sycamore just laughs. He says, no, don't worry about that. I don't have Pokemon waiting around, feeling like they were never wanted by a trainer. If one trainer doesn't show up, then the next trainer that picks them is the one that they go with. I'm actually all out of the starter Pokemon for the Kalos region at this current time. Well, all out of them except for one. Ash says, really? Would you mind if I take a look at it? Out of excitement, Professor Sycamore laughs. He says, yes, that's not a problem, but I want to warn you, there's something odd about this starter Pokemon. Ash, Alexa, and Grant question. Odd? As Professor Sycamore leads them out to the garden behind his lab, where all of the Pokemon that he actually cares for live. Professor Sycamore says, yes, something's a bit odd. I've actually had this Pokemon in my care for a while, and I've never actually put it up for the starter for first trainer because of how odd it is. Professor Sycamore then calls, hey, where are you? As the group looks on in silence over the garden. Ash says, what are we looking for? Professor Sycamore just says, hold on, you'll see. Then from some bushes in front of them rushes a Pokemon off to Sycamore's side. This Pokemon does its best to hide itself behind Professor Sycamore, and he just laughs some more. He says, don't worry, it's okay. They're friends. You have nothing to fear from them. The little Pokemon pokes its head out from behind Professor Sycamore, and Ash looks at it. He says, is that a Chespin? Professor Sycamore says, yeah, it is. How'd you know that, Ash? Ash says, well, when I was actually thinking about what starter Pokemon I would have, Chespin was going to be my first choice. Professor Sycamore says, really? Well, as you can see, this Chespin is a little bit different than a normal Chespin. And Ash says, yeah, its color is off, but that's not something new to me. And Grant and Alexa both second this. Professor Sycamore is struck by their odd comment. Professor Sycamore says, this is the first Pokemon I've ever seen with this odd coloring. It's not a variant that's often found rare in the wild that we refer to as a shiny. It's something completely different. And Ash says, yeah, we've actually come across a lot of those recently. And then Ash, Grant, and Alexa send out their Pokemon. Tyrant, Skiddo, Yanma, and Craniodos. Professor Sycamore is awestruck. Ash says, you see, I actually have some of my own. Sycamore immediately starts wanting to examine the Pokemon. He is fascinated by these Pokemon and their off coloring. He immediately asks Ash what he knows about his Pokemon. Ash says, well, apparently what I've been told from one of the Nurse Joys, Yanma is showing traits of the fairy typing, which according to the Pokedex is only a bug flying type. Professor Sycamore then asks about Craniodos, saying that that Pokemon is a very rare occurrence in the Kalos region. Ash says, yeah, I agree. And Ash says, this Craniodos actually has remnants of the dark typing, which is very odd, as according to the Pokedex, it's just a rock type. Professor Sycamore says, yes, that is correct. He then asks about Skiddo, and Alexa too concurs that Skiddo has remnants of the fairy typing in it. And then about Tyrant, and Grant too confirms Tyrant has remnants of the dark typing in it. Professor Sycamore only lets out one word, fascinating. Ash says, yeah, it's something we really haven't ever seen before, and it's been actually a cause of a lot of trouble for us with Team Flare. Professor Sycamore says, Team Flare, you say? Ash says, yeah, they've been after these Pokemon, and we don't know why. Professor Sycamore says, interesting. And then he picks up Chespin and he holds him. He says, this Chespin was actually brought to me by someone who was attacked by Team Flare when he found this Pokemon out in the wild. And you want to know another coincidence? This Pokemon has remnants of the dragon typing, a type that has nothing to do with this species of Pokemon. Ash says, really? Professor Sycamore says, yeah, it's very odd. And now all of these other Pokemon have started to pop up with typings that aren't native to their species. This is definitely an occurrence that's worth more study. Ash gets super excited. This Chespin is one of a kind, essentially. A Chespin that has the dragon typing. Ash rushes over to Professor Sycamore, trying to make friends with Chespin, but Chespin is super shy. And Ash's over-attentive personality immediately causes Chespin to hide inside of Professor Sycamore's coat. Professor Sycamore just laughs. He says, it's okay, don't worry. This trainer's not here to hurt you. He just wants to meet you. So Chespin pokes its head out, looking at Ash. And Ash just begins to talking to it, saying how cool it is. And he always wanted a Chespin for his starter type Pokemon. This gets Chespin's attention, and it jumps to Ash's shoulder. It is actually taken to Ash. Sycamore says, that's odd. And Ash says, what do you mean? Sycamore says, well, that Chespin never really engages with anybody else but me. And the fact that it was so willing to open up to you after a couple of positive reinforcements is astounding. I've never known anybody to be able to do that. Even the person that brought it here couldn't get it to open up like that. Ash says, really? And Professor Sycamore says, yeah. And then Sycamore has an idea. He says, hey Ash, I have a question to ask you. How about you take Chespin with you? Ash, puzzled, says, what do you mean? Professor Sycamore says, well, you never did get a starter Pokemon for me, and it seems that Chespin has taken a liking to you, as Chespin is rubbing its cheeks on Ash's cheeks, just happy to have a friend. And Sycamore says, well, why don't you take this Chespin? After all, you seem to have experience raising Pokemon that are not native species, as in your Cranidos and your Yanma. So this Chespin may be destined to be with you. Ash just looks at it, and he asks, so what do you think, Chespin? Would you like to come with me? Chespin just looks at Ash for a moment, thinking about this offer. But ultimately, it decides to go with Ash. Chespin doesn't know what it is, but it knows that it has to be with Ash. So with that, Ash pulls out a Pokeball and taps it to Chespin's head, and Chespin goes inside the ball, bringing Ash's team to a team of 6. Professor Sycamore says he's glad that he's finally found a trainer for Chespin. He never thought that he would ever be able to have another human interact with it. He does tell Ash, however, though, he would like for Ash to keep him updated with any new developments in Chespin and Cranidos and Yanma, and any of the other Pokemon that they have or they may come across. Ash agrees with this, and with that, they decide to head out because Ash has a date with his 3rd gym badge. After walking for what seems like a whole day, they finally reach the center of the city and the site of the 3rd gym in the Prism Tower. Ash is super psyched. He really wants a chance to challenge his next gym leader. The gym is all the way on the top floor of the tower, so Ash, Alexa, and Grant head inside, boarding the elevator and heading to the top floor. Once inside, they are met by a young girl who introduces herself as Bonnie, and she asks if they are there to challenge her big brother Clemont for his gym badge. Ash tells her, yes, I'm actually here to challenge for my 3rd gym badge. Bonnie, being the ever-confident little sister that she is, tells Ash, well, he might as well just turn around, because there's no way he's going to be able to beat her big brother. This kind of frustrates Ash a little bit, and he tells her, listen, I'm not going anywhere. You can either go get your big brother yourself, or I will find him. But either way, I'm not leaving here without a gym badge. The aggression Ash just showed kind of intimidates Bonnie a little bit, so she runs off to the back of the gym, and after a couple of minutes, she reemerges with a young boy next to her, and he introduces himself as Clemont, the gym leader of the Lumiose gym. Ash says, wait, you're the gym leader? But you're just a kid. Clemont says, listen, you're just a kid yourself. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you have the talent to be a gym leader, then you can be a gym leader. Ash, kind of shocked, says, yeah, I guess so. Okay, well, my name is Ash, and I'm here to challenge for my 3rd gym badge. Clemont says, 3rd, huh? Most people that reach me usually have 5, but I guess I can make an exception for you this time. Ash questions, exception? Why would this be an exception? You're supposed to accept any challenges that are laid out to you. Clemont says, true, but I do have the right to turn them down if I don't see fit. But you know what? For you, we will make the exception. It seems like Clemont is trying to get under Ash's skin, kinda as a revenge for calling him a kid. Ash then angrily says, okay, so how many Pokemon are we going to be using? Clemont says, we will use 3. Ash says, fine, then let's get this battle started so I can win my 3rd badge. Clemont just shrugs and he walks to his side of the battlefield while Ash stomps towards his. Clemont then chooses to start off the battle with something big, and he sends in his Heliolisk. Ash then uses the Pokedex to get the data on this Pokemon, and once he realizes that this is an electric type, he deduces that this is an electric type gym. He says, alright then, I guess I'll go with my newest choice, and he actually sends in Chespin. Chespin is kind of shocked about being sent into the battle. It actually wasn't thinking that it would ever have to battle. It kind of joined Ash because it wanted a friendship, not an actual battling career, and it runs over to Ash's side. Ash says, listen Chespin, Pokemon battles can be fun, and they're a great way for us to bond. Chespin just looks at Ash. Ash points across the field. See the Heliolisk over there? This is what's known as a gym battle, and that right there is the gym leader's Pokemon. If we can beat 3 of his Pokemon, then we'll earn a gym badge. And Ash pulls his other 2 gym badges out of his case, and he shows it. Ash then tells Chespin, and if we can earn 8 of these, we can then enter the Kalos League for a chance to challenge the champion. Wouldn't you like to show everybody how strong you are? This kind of panders to Chespin, as it hasn't ever actually had the chance to show everybody its true power. So it immediately jumps in the battlefield, accepting its new responsibility as a Pokemon who battles. Ash says great, and he orders it to use a Vine Whip. This being the Pokemon's first battle, it actually uses it and makes the attempt to contact with Heliolisk, but Clemont's able to easily order a dodge, and then Heliolisk counters with a Thunderbolt that connects with Chespin. It doesn't cause a lot of damage, as Chespin's grass typing is resistant to electric, but Chespin still felt it, and unfortunately, this does have a negative side effect. Chespin wasn't expecting Heliolisk to retaliate, so with that, it immediately runs back to Ash's side, forfeiting the battle. Ash tries to plead with Chespin to go back in, but it's not having it. This whole event was way more than a bargain for. Ash is great as he returns Chespin to his ball, and he thinks to himself, I really have my work cut out for this one. Clemont then says to Ash, so, is that the best you got? Because if all your Pokemon are just going to run away from my first attack, then we might as well just call the gym battle here. Ash says, don't worry. worry, I have exactly what I need to take you down, as he sends in Cranidos. Cranidos, being the battler that it is much more inclined to battle. And because of the battle with Chespin, Clemont was lured into a false sense of security, and because of this, Ash and Cranidos are able to put down Heliolisk rather quickly with a Zen Headbutt. Ash says, see, I told you. Chespin is my newest Pokemon. I haven't had really a lot of time to work with it, but I wanted to give it a shot. But my other Pokemon are more than able to battle. Clemont says, I'm glad to hear that, because this next Pokemon is going to leave you with the real challenge, as he sends in his Magneton. The battle between Magneton and Cranidos heats up. Unfortunately, Cranidos being a rock type puts it at a disadvantage with Magneton and its steel typing. But in the end, it is able to hold its own, resulting in a double knockout between Magneton and Cranidos. This brings Ash and Clemont's battle down to just one Pokemon each. Ash pulls out Absol's Pokeball. He knows that Absol will be able to pull him through no matter what he tries, so he sends it in, while Clemont makes the decision to send in his Luxray. The two Pokemon stare each other down. Absol and Luxray refuse to be intimidated by each other. It's almost like the two Pokemon are trying to demonstrate who has the more ferocity, and the battle that ensues also shows this. Ash calling for attacks like Quick Attack and Razor Wind, while Clemont is calling for attacks like Crunch and Shockwave. The two refuse to give any ground, and this actually has Clemont starting to respect Ash. Although the battle did start out weak and Clemont thought Ash would be a pushover, his later two Pokemon really did follow up, and it shows that Ash actually knows what he's doing. In the end, Ash and Absol are able to get an upper hand on Clemont and Luxray when Ash orders a Quick Attack to dodge Luxray's Spark, and then it hits him from behind with the Razor Wind, putting it down with a critical hit, winning Ash the battle, but just barely, because as soon as Luxray falls, Absol also falls. If it had been 1 second more, then the battle would have been a tie, and Ash wouldn't have gotten his badge. But Clemont does honor the battle, and he hands over the Voltage badge to Ash, thanking him for a battle well fought, telling him that his last two Pokemon really pulled through for him, and he was legitimately impressed. With that, Ash, Alexa, and Grant part ways from the Prism Tower. As they board the elevator to go down, Ash is thinking what his next move will be, and where the next gym is located, as he discusses it with Alexa and Grant. As the trio exit the elevator, Ash bumps into a young girl, knocking some stuff out of her hands. He bends down to grab the stuff that fell, and he apologizes. As he looks up and he goes, I'm so sorry. My name's Ash. What's yours? And she says, oh, that's okay. My name's Serena. And that's all we have for part 6 of What If Ash Was Born in Kalos. Now that I've definitively driven a wedge in my comment section, I want to know your guys' opinion. How do you feel about Chespin as Ash's starter? What do you think about it having the dragon typing? And how does it tie in to Yama and Cranidos? And how do you feel about Ash's team overall? And what about the interactions that Grant had with Looker? And of course, Serena showing up at the end. Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you liked the video, make sure to subscribe and drop a like, as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you haven't already, join the Discord, as you can get help with making your what ifs with everybody that exists in there. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter for behind the scenes access to things that I'm working on in real time. And lastly, if you want to support me further, please check out my Patreon. $5 a month gets you 1 week early access to all my videos, and it continues to support me to bring you the content that you guys love. Anyway, I'm Ronan Charizard, and I'll see you in the next video.